welcome back to another episode of the TFR Podcast. We are back today to review the 2025 Brazilian Grand Prix and then later on look ahead to the up-and-coming Las Vegas Grand Prix. Once again, the third time now we're going to have that race, and I think it's probably one of the most hyped Grand Prix of the whole season. I've got two guests with me today. I've got Luke, audio only, at the bottom of the screen, and we're joined by a new guest. Tudor, welcome to the podcast. I mean,
Thanks for having
how
me.
are we? All good?
Yeah, everything's good. Just a bit tired, but I'm ready for this podcast.
Good stuff. Good stuff. How about yourself, Luke? Are you feeling well?
Not bad, hanging in there. Coming back from vacation, allergies are killing me, but I'm all right.
Decent stuff. Decent. Now I have to ask you: have you got a favorite driver or a favorite team or anything, just so the listeners can get a little bit of kind of information about you before we dive into this first episode of for yourself?
I mean, as you can see on the right or left of my screen, I don't know how you can see it. I have a Ferrari Lego car.
Okay. Yeah.
So as a team, yeah, that's my favorite team. And as a driver, I don't necessarily have one. It's maybe Carlos or Leclerc.
Nice.
But as an all-time favorite driver, it's probably Ricardo.
I see. Another Ricardo fan. Well, you join a very
Yeah,
big club with that one, that is for sure. But I think as
yeah.
well,
Right.
everyone can say that they're a bit of a Ferrari fan, particularly on this podcast, that is for sure. But decent stuff. Perfect. Well, we've got plenty to get through in this episode, and we're going to start off with obviously the Brazilian Grand Prix that we have just had, and it was a critical Grand Prix for the championship, particularly for Lando Norris. And the question is now, has he got one hand on this 2025 World Championship? Because it was once again a bit of a rough weekend for Oscar Piastri, who crashed out in the sprint race and then failed to gain any significant points on Lando Norris in the main race. And it was a clean sweep for the championship leader, topping every single session in Sao Paulo. I'm going to put it to you first, Luke. What are your thoughts on Lando's performance in Brazil? And do you agree? Has he got one hand on that championship trophy?
Yeah, thoughts on his performance. I mean, just he performed flawlessly, let's be honest. Like, he did everything that he needed to. Had a clean sweep of the weekend, like we just said. Like, truly, I think he's almost got it. Like, I think Vegas won't necessarily wrap it up in terms of points, but it, I think it might wrap it up in terms of like what I'm already thinking. Like, if he has another dominant weekend coming up, then yeah, this would definitely solidify it. So yeah, absolutely, he definitely has one hand on the trophy, and honestly, right now, this is probably the best we've ever seen him perform. He's been consistently at the top. He's been getting, he's not fumbling his race starts like we had a lot of criticisms about last year. Like, yeah, he's really doing it, and I think he's definitely feeling confident with where he's at.
It's an interesting point you make, actually, of him being kind of in the form of his career, and I kind of well and truly agree with that. I think he's just hit his, peak. Well, it's not even his peak, but his just peak performance of this season at the perfect time, just when it matters and when he really needed to kind of grab hold of this season, where it should have really been between these two McLaren drivers, and obviously Verstappen coming in later on the season, bringing himself into contention. It still should have always been between these two McLaren drivers, and I think it probably will be now. But Lando has really managed to grab hold of things and build a quite healthy gap. I mean, what do you make of it, Tudor? Do you think it's kind of looking now where it's Lando's to kind of give away or lose, if you like, which without stating the obvious, because obviously his gap is about 24 points now.
In general, yeah, I think it's his championship to lose because Oscar Piastri, we can even look back at last season. Towards the end of it, his performance started falling off, and it seems like it's a repeat as last season. He's just during the final part races, he just hasn't looked that good.
Yeah, absolutely. And the question is really, why do we think Piastri has fallen off so much? Now, we've spoke about this before on this podcast in previous episodes, but again, we had that rain on Saturday for the sprint race, and it was just a slight error and it kind of dipped the tire into the curb, and then that was it. He found himself in the barrier and out of the sprint. Was that a driver area for you, Tudor, or do you think that was just pure unluckiness for Oscar?
I think it's a bit of both of driver and error and unluckiness. Because yeah, th- you can say he wasn't just a driver error because two other drivers followed him in the barriers. They just followed the line and that puddle just was there in between those ridges.
Yeah,
But yeah.
go ahead. Yeah, you're definitely right. I mean, the fact that two other drivers ended up in the same place kind of says a lot, I think, as well, of that incident. It was obviously Colapinto and I think a Sauber. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think maybe
Hulkenberg.
Hulkenberg, that was it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was tricky conditions, to be fair, and it kind of something was going to happen like that in the sprint race. But yeah, it again is another costly DNF in the sprint, Luke. I mean, we say about these sprint races on the podcast where we're not necessarily a massive fan of them, but in recent kind of races, they are almost championship deciding. If you think about the amount of points Piastri's lost in them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely been, yeah, they have. I mean, not definitely, but they have played a surprisingly big role in this season, especially when it comes to just our day-to-day views and the media's views of just how drivers are performing. Because yeah, it's definitely doing a lot or a lot more than we thought it would in terms of points. But then, also whoever's winning these sprint races is also like almost, that's the person we're hyping for that weekend. Like I know that we've had a lot of chatter about Verstappen winning sprint races, and then just I've definitely seen Twitter changing almost every other day just because of, once again, the sprint races, which is not something that we saw really at all last year. They are a lot more important to just the public eye this time around in this championship, which I don't know, I think it's definitely interesting. I think I think it's just surprising that honestly Norris has done so well in so many of them at this point.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. Norris is just on a roll, and it's crazy, really, in some sense, because he's only won the last two races, but it's not doesn't feel like that at all. The amount of points that he's gained overall from both kind of Grand Prix, it's just massively swung things in his favor. And I mean, how about his race on Sunday, Tudor? I mean, he kind of seemed in control throughout. He wasn't necessarily the happiest driver ever after the race, but do you think that's maybe an element of him kind of almost locking in now on that championship, and it's kind of just ticking off the races till towards the end of the season?
I mean, yeah, I think he, like you said, he had a clean sweep. You can't blame that his performance or that he got to into that position because of papaya rules. He just has been faster than Piastri for the past few races. You can't blame it on the team.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen a few things swirling around that there's a lot of Piastri fans that aren't happy with McLaren, and they're convinced that there's a different chassis on each car, and all sorts of speculation and rumors. But at the end of the day, I think Norris at the minute is just in form and Piastri isn't. And what do you think? We've said about again this before, Luke, but what could Piastri do here? I mean, he really looks like he's almost more under threat from Verstappen behind now instead of catching Norris and taking back that championship lead.
I mean, what can Piastri do at this point? Honestly, I mean, besides the obvious of just qualifying better and doing better, I think he needs to kind of figure out like what's going wrong every week, like in these like the setup development they do. I want to know what's going wrong in just the day to day of the garage, because currently it's not just, or I mean, I hope it's not just like a failure to understand the car. But if that's it, then he really just needs to do that. But yeah, with only three races left, I don't necessarily know if he can. That he can't help. He can't hope for the team to invest more, like technically. They've basically, I don't know, they're basically at the end of the season, so that's not going to happen. I don't know. Piastri really just needs to focus up, and that's all what really can happen. The team is still going to support him. I'm pretty sure that they're not going to start like preferring him like full time or something like that. But it's difficult no matter how you slice it, because there's really not much you can do when your performances have been consistently bad, and that's just it.
Yeah, absolutely. And a driver that hasn't been kind of having consistently bad performances is also Max Verstappen. However,
Yeah.
in qualifying, that was as bad as it can get for Max. And he had a bad quali last year, in Brazil, and obviously was knocked out in the early stages, but it wasn't quite as bad as this. And on pure pace, Verstappen getting knocked out in Q1 for the first time, really almost in his career, because any other time it's really there's been engine penalties or there's some reliability problem. This on pure pace, both Red Bulls were knocked out in Q1, and obviously they were scratching their heads, and it was kind of a thing of going back to the drawing board, and they ended up taking new kind of power unit elements and then changing the setup for the race on Sunday. And then I tell you, Tudor, I mean, that was just another level of comeback on that race on Sunday. And it just showed the difference of just going back to the drawing board with everything, because he was in unstoppable form.
Yeah, he really was. It's sad that he couldn't recreate the performance he had last year. Not like this year he had a bad performance, but it would have been even greater if he managed to get that win. But starting from the pit lane is even bigger of a challenge to get a win than P17.
That's
But yeah, he was
interesting.
just unstoppable.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, actually, that you think it would be a greater achievement than what he did at last year if he managed to win that race.
Oh yeah, it would have been.
I
That would have
mean,
been fair.
yeah, at the same time, the conditions this year have been better than last year. Last year was just chaos all around. It was really wet, and every driver was just sliding off. So some teams managed to get an advantage, like Alpine, but Max Verstappen just stayed there. They didn't make no mistakes, and he managed to get the win.
Yeah, and you're right. He didn't quite manage to get it this time, but it was an incredible comeback. And I have to say, there's races like this, Luke, where you kind of question why Max would ever want to leave Red Bull, because when they're all in sync and working, it is the perfect kind of combination of the team and the strategy. We're all kind of on point in Brazil, and the car was good, and then they've got the driver as well. I mean, it was all kind of came together, and then that's what produced. Arguably, they were the quickest. Well, I mean, it's not even anything to argue. I think they were the quickest on Sunday of all the teams and drivers.
Yeah, I'd say Red Bull honestly could be like as far as what do you want to leave? No, I don't think so. You can tell that they've tried really hard and they did recover well. Um, I can disagree slightly with just saying that they were the quickest. I mean, the thing is, it's just Max Verstappen at the end of the day. You
Mm.
can't ever discount. And like, who knows? Some people like wanted to speculate. Hey, if you had just left the original setup on, maybe he would have been able to go for the win. But who knows? That's the whole thing. We don't. That's not the reality of the situation. Um, I'd still, definitely say he was probably the quickest individually, but those McLaren still at the end of the day, even though Oscar Piastri struggled, still probably looked like the best of the field. Lando Norris still obviously had a super comfortable win. There really wasn't much struggle for him. Um, yeah, but you're right. I don't know why Max Verstappen would want to leave Red Bull. Like he's been so in sync with this team for so long. It's like even with the whole rookie scandal and like the second driver curse, it's like I know it affects Max Verstappen because he wants somebody consistent in the seat for development. But as far as like points and championships goes, like that really hasn't been affecting him that much besides a little bit in the constructors. So I don't know. It's just interesting to even think about him trying to leave at this point. Like all that stuff with Mercedes and everything just honestly seems, I don't know. I just want to say it seems pretty improbable that he would ever want to leave with how they're performing. And you're right. He's done well, and I think he'll continue doing well.
Yeah, totally. And I think like drives like that, they're the kind of ones that you'll remember years down the line. Like you probably won't remember Norris winning that race and kind of really kind of putting a stamp on his championship, but you'll probably remember Verstappen's comeback of from the pit lane to the podium. And I mean, he almost got Antonelli at the end, and we'll obviously speak further about Kimi later in the pod of how well he did, because he had his best weekend so far in F1. I would probably say, but for Verstappen, I mean, some of the overtakes. I mean, he made one on Hulkenberg, I think, early on, which was a bit of a dive bomb into the turn one, which was brilliant. And then there was, I mean, my favourite shooter was the one on George Russell. I mean, right around the outside towards the end of the race. I know Russell had a little bit of brake issues, but just the way the camera work was as well, and the way he kind of swooped round in that first corner, it was amazing to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, it just looked like they were flowing through the corners without any incidents. It just looked really, really clean and nice. It just shows how talented both drivers are.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. There was a bit of respect as well there in that kind of move, because we know Verstappen and George, they've had their incidents this season, but yeah, there was no stopping him. Yeah, like I say, no stopping Max in terms of his comeback, and yeah, he actually went on to say after the race, he's actually admitted now that incident with Russell back in Spain earlier in the season was his one mistake of this season. And I think everyone can probably agree to that, you know, if he didn't do that, he would be a lot closer in this championship. But speaking of the championship, do you think it's over for Max now, Tudor? I mean, it would need a bit of a miracle for him to drag himself into actually a realistic opportunity of winning this title. But would you go as far as say it's over for him now?
I wouldn't say it's over. It's the chances are much they're
Slimmer.
they're not that big as slimmer than they used to be at the start of Monza, let's say, when he really started to catch up. I mean, Vegas is not a good track for the McLarens. They're not good in straight speeds, and Max likes Vegas, as I know. He won in 20, not in 20, in 22, and in 23, not in 23.
I think it
Wait,
was
Vegas
23.
started in
Yeah,
23.
yeah.
Yeah, right. He won in. I was confused with Singapore for a bit. He won in 23, and in 24 he won his fourth championship there. So it might be a good race for him, and for the McLarens, who knows, they might struggle. So he might have a chance to catch up there a bit. But honestly, I am rooting for him to win the championship. But even if he's Max Verstappen, I don't think there's just enough races left and enough points to get for him to fill the gap. But he might, I'm saying that he can maybe get P2 from Oscar.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think you're right, Tudor. I think there's a good chance that Max could overturn that gap because of the form that Piastri's in. And then, like you're saying there, we don't expect the McLarens to do too well in Vegas. I mean, we'll happily be proven wrong, but going off the last few years and what McLaren are saying themselves, they are not expecting a good result this weekend. So, is this last chance saloon for Max now, Luke, or is it over for you already? I mean, it has to win this weekend, surely.
I don't know. I don't want to say that he really has a chance anymore. You know,
Oh,
I
come
like
on.
being hopeful.
Commit to
I mean,
it.
okay, being hopeful. Like honestly, I still kind of want Piastri to win. Like if I want anybody to, I want Piastri to make the comeback. I'm going to commit to it and say that no, Max can't come back and take the championship, just because ultimately the McLarens still have the pace. You know, maybe at Vegas, maybe not. You know, we know that they've had some problems with drag, like at Baku specifically. We know they were dealing with some weird tire. What's the word I'm looking for here? Not degradation. I'm trying. I can't
For
remember
sure.
the. Yeah, I can't remember the particular word I'm looking for here, but they were just dealing with some weird tire degradation, and so like yeah, Max Verstappen could take it this time around. It's not going to be. This isn't going to be like the championship decider or something like that. You know, he's always going to be good, and you can never discount him for a win or pole. But yeah, this isn't. I don't think this is his championship anymore.
Yeah, it would take. And I just don't know. It would need Norris for sure to DNF in Vegas or something, and for Max to
Exactly, and I
win
don't
for
remember.
me.
I Do you know what positions he'd have to finish in for the next couple races? I mean, I'm sure obviously if he finished in first in all the next few races, he would obviously do well. But I just don't remember what like Norris and Piastri would have to finish him. And if it's anything really below podiums, then honestly, I don't really see it happening because I expect at least one McLaren on the podium every single week until the end of the season. You know?
I think I saw somewhere that Norris can finish second in each of the final races, including the sprint, and he secures the championship no matter what. If he finishes
Yeah,
second in
that's the
each
same
event.
thing I saw. Even if Max wins every race and Norris comes second, Max won't be able to catch up to him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And so that's just it. I don't see that happening.
I think that's the thing. The problem for Max is, yes, if Norris was kind of finishing where Piastri's been finishing, then yeah, he'd be right there and he's really closing in. But the problem for Max is Norris has stepped up a gear, literally, and has just extended that gap to Verstappen. And yeah, like I say, it's a lot rides on this weekend in Vegas, and if McLaren do have a bad result and Max wins, for example, then yeah, he gives himself an opportunity to try something and at least claw himself into kind of a distant kind of reach of contention, because we have seen before. Look at that 2010 season that's got quite a bit of similarities to this season. Sebastian Vettel was like 15 points behind Alonso, I think, going into that final round, and then he obviously won that championship. So I think for Max, it's just staying in contention for him. He's not going to take the lead of the championship before the final round, but if he can at least be there come Abu Dhabi, then you obviously never know what could happen. But moving on though from the whole title conversation, let's give Kimi Antonelli his praise, because I thought he had a really, really good weekend. Maybe I don't know, we can debate this a little bit. Who was at fault for the collision between him and Piastri and Leclerc? But apart from that, it was pretty damn spotless, and he had really, really good pace, didn't he, Tudor?
Yeah, he really did. Especially from Europe, he stepped up a lot. I don't know what happened to him in the Europe stint, but he just didn't look well at all. But since then, he stepped up his game and race pace in general.
Oh yeah.
It's his second podium. His first one he got in Canada, I think. But even if it's his second podium in general, he was in the top five quite a lot and beating Russell in qualifying or even some races.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the thing. Antonelli didn't have the greatest record against Russell for most of the season, but suddenly now he's turning things on its head, Luke. I mean, were you pleased to see him on the podium?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, if that McLaren, or if Lando Norris wasn't so dominant at McLaren, if it wasn't just to his liking, honestly, I could have seen him going for the win. Like on most other, in most other seasons, on most other days, like that Mercedes, the way he was gelling with it, it was. I mean, I wouldn't say it was perfection, but it was. He was once again he was almost flawless in the race as well. Beating out his more experienced teammate. He just did the job that needed to be done. You know, it was really great. I mean, it makes me a little jealous. He's exactly a year. I mean, we share the same birthday, so there's this kid literally a year younger than me getting podiums in F1, and I'm like, come on, man, that should be me. But yeah, it's amazing to see. It's and good for him, honestly.
Join the club. I'm jealous as well, and I'm far older than Kimi Antonelli. But yeah, thought as well. Like, I mean, you think the sprint race, he could have very easily won that with the whole tire advantage at that point of the race, and then the way he defended against a charge of Verstappen. And I know Max's tires maybe were going off a little bit by that point, but still, for Antonelli to place the car like he did and get the good exits, that was a high pressure scenario, and he, survived. And I think this is really going to bode well for him for next season and future seasons, because there's no doubt about it, Tudor. He's had a rough season, but he'll be glad that he's finally had some good results to end the season on a bit of a high and a positive note, because then it kind of makes it easier to forget about all those other mistakes.
But then here's the
Yeah,
question: what does that mean for Russell? Like, what does this mean for his season, especially next year? I mean, what if Antonelli beats him for these last three races? Like, what do you think that'll do to Russell, like mentality wise, or do you think that'll like affect his position in the team as the number one driver.
I'll let you tackle that, Tudor.
I mean, honestly, I don't know. Russell is still it's his first year as the team leader, so of course he needs to gather a bit more experience as one. But in general, yeah, I don't know. I don't see Antonelli beating Russell in the last few races. But if he does somehow, I mean, I'll be happy for him. It'll look a bit worrying for Russell. But they both got a morale boost because almost the whole year they've been wondering if they're even gonna drive for Mercedes next year. Toto just wasn't signing them until I forgot what race they got confirmed for next year.
Singapore.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Singapore. Since then, like I've definitely know it helped their morale knowing they're actually having a seat. But yeah, I mean for us, so it's not looking rough, but it's a bit weird that Antonelli is kind of just beating him in the last races.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on that because I would say like the last two tracks are obviously they're quite high in tire deg and the kind of slipperiness of the circuit layout. So I don't know, maybe that's been helping Antonelli in terms of driving style. You do see that sometimes where certain types of tracks drivers prefer than others, but yeah, it's good to see. I think it's a good thing for Mercedes as well because they need two drivers firing on all cylinders towards the front. And the crazy thing is of how young he is. The fact is, this is all still very new for him, and he's already kind of delivering. But I think for George, at the end of the day, let's be real. He has kind of dominated Kimi all season, so like the stats speak for themselves. I think one or two races, won't kind of affect him too much. But I think if he loses again to Antonelli in Vegas, then that'll be free on the trot, obviously, and that's where you start to have a little bit more of a different conversation. But yeah, well done to Kimi. What did we make of the incident though between him, Piastri, and Leclerc? It was probably the biggest kind of crash, if you like, of the race. And to kind of paint the scene, we had the restart after the shenanigans of the opening couple of laps, and Norris kind of went quite late, and it caught out maybe Antonelli behind, and then he had Leclerc on his right-hand side. He had Piastri chucking it down the inside on the left. Antonelli goes to defend against Piastri, maybe kind of makes it a bit of a tight squeeze into that first corner, with then Piastri clipping Antonelli into Leclerc, which then led to Leclerc's DNF. I'll put it on you first, Luke. Who do you blame for the incident?
Oh, that's really tough. I mean, just first off, watching them go three wide, I was like grinding my teeth, man. I was
I
scared.
was like, this is going to be trouble.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, I was like, oh crap. I was so worried about I was so worried about everybody there. Um, Honestly, I don't really feel like it was
Come
anybody's
on.
particular fault. No, I'm being
No,
serious in this one.
I'm not
Watching it
having it,
over and
Luke. You
over and
have to
over
commit to
again, man.
somebody. That is such a
No, I
cop
know
out. I'm
it
not
was
having
so
it.
tough though. My thing is, it was just a racing incident. It was a triple commit at the wrong corner. Like what are you supposed to do otherwise? Because you couldn't. None of them could have really braked any harder, or else somebody behind them would have probably gone into the back of any of them, and would have caused an even bigger incident. It's just it sucked, because it's just that's how F1 racing works. Somebody already had a corner. You can't do much to change it. You can't really challenge it. It's right at the beginning, so everybody's as tight as can be. It was just hard racing gone wrong. It wasn't really anybody making a mistake, because watching each of their povs and doing everything like that after the fact, like, yeah, they were racing each other hard, but no, really nobody made a mistake. Like, honestly, everybody did everything exactly how they were supposed to, and it's three super talented drivers, just unfortunately all coming to a head. None of them did anything stupid. That's my whole thing.
Now, I hear what you're saying, Luke, about a racing incident, but tell that to Charles Leclerc, who was wiped out the race. If that was the decision from
That
the stewards that it was a racing
sucks.
incident, he'd be furious. So I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. You need to blame somebody.
That's
Come on.
That's fair. That's fair. You're right. It's hard to say that, but I mean, they were just racing hard, man.
He was out of the
Somebody got
race.
caught out. I know exactly. He is out of the race, but that's just it. Sometimes shit happens. I mean, like we've had so many incidents like this in the past that sometimes we just can't assign the blame. It's really hard because like neither of them really deserve it. They all, as I said, they all were racing hard, and what happened happened.
Right, Shooter. Come on. Let's put the blame on somebody here. No mucking around.
Well, in general, I have the same opinion as Luke. I'm a Leclerc fan, so even if I'm saying it's a racing incident, but if I had to put the blame on someone, it would probably be Piastri because it was just the domino effect, and Piastri started it. He was the first piece that fell, and then he went into Kimi, and then Kimi went into Charles. Uh, I
Exactly.
wasn't happy that Charles got wiped out by technically a Mercedes again, and the same Mercedes driver. But
Like we were saying, it was
yeah, it
already
was
going
just
to happen.
racing. They knew their stakes and they went for it, and the stakes weren't 100%, and it just happened. But if I had to put the blame on someone, yeah, I'd have been Piastri.
I would have penalised Piastri and Antonelli if I was the stewards in that incident, because I think, like, on the first viewing, I think you see the lockup from Piastri and you think, oh yeah, that's immediately his fault. He's locked it up. He's not in control of the car. But in fairness to Oscar, I think he gets squeezed by Antonelli so that he has to lock up. And where else can he go? Where else can he put the car there? He's already there. He can't vanish. And I think Antonelli panics a little bit there because he's got a car on his left and his right, and he just decides to defend hard against Oscar and doesn't really leave him many places to go. I still think Oscar comes in a bit too hot, but that's why I would have given them both penalties, and then they could both suffer the consequences of wiping Leclerc out of the race. But I don't think Leclerc was to blame at all, that's for sure.
Yeah, it
No, that's
wasn't.
true. It's just by the letter of it's just by the letter of the law. Like, yeah, nobody did anything wrong, and
Oh,
that's just the
well,
impossible
well,
part.
well.
It's like,
I
well, it's
don't
like
know
here's
about
the,
that.
like if you say if anybody technically did something wrong, right? When it comes to the actual fighting, Kimmy, like, yeah, Kimmy did squeeze. Sorry, Piastri did kind of squeeze Kimmy into Leclerc. But then on Piastri's side, Piastri can't see Leclerc on that all the way on the edge of the track. He's not in his wing mirrors. Kimmy would have been blocking him entirely. So like, how the hell is Piastri supposed to be able to tell? He's not like, unless like he has like a spotter commenting on every single car at every single second at that restart. Like, there's no way like Piastri could have known that Leclerc was all the way on the outside. And then you're right, Kimi was in probably the hardest situation of them all. Against two insanely renowned Formula One drivers in the current like best race of his, like arguably like one of the best performances of his career. Like, he can't fold to the pressure. That would be terrible. Like, nobody really could do anything. And then Piastri, he defended the correct way. He gave Kimi technically the space he needed and that he was allotted being ahead of the corner. But just, it happens, man. Like, honestly, none of them did anything dirty. There wasn't like bad, and nobody really ended with bad blood. There wasn't like Leclerc calling anyone
I'm
a
sure
huge
Leclerc wasn't
idiot after
happy.
the race. Oh yeah, I'm sure he wasn't happy, but I'm saying like there wasn't blame that got passed. There wasn't like, oh yeah, this was all his fault, being whatever. It just, shit happens. That's racing.
Yeah, I think Piastri was unfortunate to get a 10-second penalty for that and be the only one really to get hit with that kind of big penalty. Obviously, Leclerc has his own punishment of getting taken out of the race. So, but I think Piastri, yeah, on second viewing, maybe a bit of a controversial one. I don't know why the stewards are so obsessed with 10-second penalties for everything nowadays. I hate it. What happened to good old 5 seconds? 10 seconds for like every single bit of contact or any kind of incident, I just feel is super harsh. But obviously, it was a bad race for Ferrari because obviously they had Leclerc out. Hamilton as well had his own shenanigans on the opening lap. And yeah, he had to retire the car in the end because there was so much damage on the floor.
Ugh,
And yeah,
yeah.
it looks pretty miserable now for Ferrari. They're going to need a real recovery to get that second place in the constructors. And they were, just to kind of double down on the criticism, we had the chairman of Ferrari, John Elkann, after the whole weekend, came out
Oh
and
God,
said
you need to
that
shut the hell up.
you know, the mechanics are doing a good job and the engineers are improving the car and blah blah blah, but the drivers need to focus on driving and talk less, was what John Elkann came out with, which, as you can imagine, went down not particularly well with the Tifosi. So what do we make of that, Tudor? Does he have a point? Do the incredible talents of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc need to
God,
step up their game?
shut the.
Honestly, no, he has no point. I mean, yes, the engineers and the pit crew in general have been doing good. The Ferraris are, I think, winning the pit stop championship.
Yeah.
But you have to take in consideration that the engineers and many crew of Ferrari made the SF25, which isn't a great car at all. It's almost, I think, like the 2014 Ferrari, where it's understeer and oversteer at the same time, so it's just almost impossible to drive. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
But
That's fair.
yeah, I don't understand where his point of the drivers need to talk less. I don't think they're talking too much. They're just making fair points and criticizing the team where they need to be criticized and need to improve. I don't think they're just talking nonsense. They've made their both Hamilton and Leclerc have made their posts, not criticizing Elkan, but Hamilton, like in his post, said he's going with the team and united. Both of the drivers wanted to state that they are united together as a team.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Go ahead, sorry.
no, it's just I think just because the hypercar for a team won at Bahrain in that same weekend, maybe made Elkan a bit judgy about the F1 team, but at the same time, Ferrari, the Formula One team, they're supposed to be completely separated from the actual car brand, which now with Elkan and I forgot the other CEO, it isn't really like that anymore. They're mostly in for the money. That's my opinion at least. And Enzo Ferrari, that wasn't his future for the Ferrari and his plan for it. He wanted for the Formula One team to be completely separated, have no relevance with the actual car brand.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I think this is the problem with Ferrari these days. They've had a bit of a change in mentality at the very top, and it's kind of showing that now. It's kind of showing that they're easy. They're very quick to protect the brand of Ferrari, and they'll always do that. No matter the drivers they have, they've done this before when they've had Alonso. They've had this before when they had Alain Prost in the 90s. Ferrari always comes first ahead of the drivers, and they'll never change that, whether it's right or wrong. But for John Elkann
Yeah.
to come out with these kind of quotes again, like you were saying, Stuart, straight after the kind of WEC championship victory, it's easy for him to say that. But I think, yeah, if you're going to blame your drivers, and particularly Leclerc, I'm not being funny, he's had like 7 or 8 podiums now this season. I mean, it's completely stupid, really, because I just think he's a bit of a slimy personality, Luke. I don't know how you feel about John Elkann, but I just don't like him at all.
Um. Oh yeah. I mean, slimy is a good way to put it, but also just shove a sock in it. Like you can't compare the WEC operation to the Formula One operation, and it's like you're right. We shouldn't be comparing the we shouldn't be comparing those teams at all. We shouldn't be comparing the actual car brand to the F1 team. Like it's just I don't know. It just kind of blows my mind that he can have really any sway at all. Because yeah, this is what Enzo Ferrari directly didn't want happening. It's just I don't know. I don't know. The whole thing actually just I gotta be careful. I'm trying to go on a rant because I did the other day about it. It's just a load of it's just honestly just shove a sock in it, dude. Like if the team is struggling, then great. That's for them to figure out. It's like if he's been more involved, honestly, maybe I think it could explain a lot about why Ferrari has been struggling because maybe he's just been involved behind the scenes, and if that's the case, and only now he's coming out publicly, maybe he's the reason that Ferrari has sucked. If it's been, we know that Ferrari has been bleeding talent for a while, and thinking about what could be happening behind the scenes, maybe it's because Ferrari, Ferrari, the car company management, has been getting more and more involved in the motorsport, and that's why they've had such a, I said, that's why they've had such a brain bleed, it's just, it's a whole thing. And sorry, once again, I'll come back to the main point. It's just, he just needs to shut the hell up. That's it.
Simple as
Fund
that.
the team. They'll know what they're going to do. Don't try and shut up your drivers, because ultimately, if they took Lewis Hamilton's advice, I guarantee you that team would be leagues better in like 3 or 4 years time, probably after Hamilton is left. But if they're smart, they'd probably be able to they'd probably be able to keep him around as like an ambassador or as a part of the Formula One team for the future, because I'm sure that he would love to do that. But if like starting now, while he's a driver, like, and arguably, their most influential driver, he's like the most influential, the most yeah, there we go, the most influential driver that they've ever had, and they're not listening, it's like they're just screwed. As it, if it's behind the scenes, it's because John Elkann has been meddling in it for a long time. Then it's just, I don't know. All of it kind of blows my mind, but it all comes back to just, he needs to shut the hell up and get out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, he kind of says about the drivers doing less talking. I think he may need to aim that at himself. But yes, for Ferrari, plenty of
Sorry,
work
that's a bit of a
to be
rant.
done. And yeah, it's. I don't think they kind of deserve to finish second in the constructors, because I do think that car has not been the second best. And so, to be honest, even as a slight Ferrari fan, I think it's kind of just if they do end up behind either Mercedes or Red Bull. But they still are in that mix, and they could still recover something in the end. But swiftly moving on, because we've still got, obviously, Vegas to look ahead later on. But to wrap up Brazil, some of the other kind of midfield shenanigans that went on, we had Ollie Behrman again performing incredibly well, finishing 6th for Haas, and massive points again gained for him. He shoots up the standings ahead of his teammate now as well, and a lot of questions now starting to kind of bubble up of, what's happened to Esteban Ocon. He's suddenly now not really performing, and his teammate is seriously ahead of him in terms of pure pace. Elsewhere, we've got the 2 Racing Bulls that finished in the points. Hadjar was pretty frustrated after the race, but it was Liam Lawson that got the better of him in Sao Paulo. We then had Hulkenberg in 9th, and Pierre Gasly scoring a rare point for Alpine in 10th. I think the Williams pair were a little bit distant from the points this weekend. Same with the 2 Aston Martins. And it was Gabi Bortoleto who had a real crash-heavy weekend in Brazil. He had a huge shunt in the sprint race, and then had another crash in the main race. I mean, those poor Sauber mechanics, Luke, I mean, they must have been fixing the car more than actually seeing it on track.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I felt bad for them. They really did their best, but I mean, there's really not much you can do with what, I don't know. There really wasn't much they could do with the weekend, but I mean, still good for them. They tried.
Yeah, I just feel sorry for those poor local fans that have waited years for a Brazilian driver and then hardly even saw him racing on track. But that's Brazil, though.
It's tough.
And it was a great weekend. I think Brazil is once again cementing itself as one of the best tracks on the calendar, and we hope to see Interlagos on the calendar for many seasons to come. But moving on, though, this weekend we do indeed have the Las Vegas Grand Prix. It is back once again, and you can be absolutely guaranteed there's going to be plenty of razzmatazz and showbiz before this one, as there always is. They seem to hype this one up more than any other race on the calendar. And, well, to be fair, it has delivered some pretty good races so far. 2023 was an exciting race, and even last year, despite Mercedes dominating out front, it still provided plenty of drama and obviously crowned Max Verstappen as a 4-time world champion. However, we're not going to see a champion decided this weekend, or we shouldn't expect to see that, but what we might see is a bit more of an unpredictable race. This is a very cold race on the calendar. We're expecting as low as 8 degrees come Sunday's race, or shall I say Saturday, obviously in Vegas time. And the question is, I'll put it to you first, Tudor. How are we thinking the pecking order is going to look like here? Because we know Mercedes do very well at cold kind of circuits and when the temperatures are a bit cooler, and they did very well here last season. But is it quite as simple as that? Or is it going to be, with how close the grid is this season, is it going to be a little bit of a lottery on who could do well here?
Honestly, I think for Vegas this year, both I think the Mercedes and Red Bulls will be at the top. McLaren's, as I said, struggle in just not top speed on straights. Yeah, the Mercedes did really good last year, and they have the potential to do good again. Maybe another Kimi podium, who knows, or maybe even a Mercedes double podium. But yeah, I'm saying that Mercedes will probably be the fastest team at Vegas today. Red Bull second, Ferrari may be there with McLaren. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It'll be fascinating to see where the McLarens are. Obviously, for the championship as well, it's going to be critical that they are towards the front because for Piastri, he needs to gain points back on Norris, but also in terms of the pair of the drivers just keeping hold of their gap ahead of Verstappen, this could be a critical weekend. What are your thoughts ahead of this Vegas GP, Luke? And are you looking forward to it? I think it's a pretty good race, to be honest.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. My thoughts: McLaren's probably aren't going to get much better than third, just based off of their previous performances at just colder weather tracks and everything like that. I think it should be all right. I'm excited. You know, they're bringing some softer compounds, which will be interesting to see. I think it'll give a lot of the teams an opportunity to kind of mess with their strategy, which I'm looking forward to. You know, we've seen a lot of these one stops just kind of plaguing everything, just because these tires, I mean, I want to say they've been consistent, but like they've almost been too consistent with their performance. So I'm looking forward to it, and I really hope we do kind of get some mix-ups in the order. And even if that mix-up is just the Mercedes doing well, I'm okay with that. I just want something maybe just a little bit different than what we're expecting. And as I said, I think that the inherent I mean, and, like the fact that the McLarens just inherently aren't as good at high speed tracks is something that can mix stuff up. You know, like I'm hoping that maybe means that Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull are the people fighting instead of the McLaren like usual. But yeah, I think it'll be good all in all. It usually is a pretty okay weekend, and I've been enjoying it since it's come, or since it's come and joined the calendar.
Yeah, I think I remember doing this podcast. It was either with yourself, Luke, or Logan when we had the first race at Vegas a few years ago. And to be honest, I might re-upload that podcast because it'd be quite interesting to see what we thought of it before we actually had the first race. But I'm pretty sure we absolutely slated it because of the amount of stuff that they were doing before the race, and it was just felt so over the top. But to be fair, the race delivered in the end, and I think that Vegas strip is actually a really good bit for kind of action and overtaking, and it kind of provides quite a bit of drama to the races when it's that kind of different layout to the other US circuits. I mean, do you think that the layout of the track needs any tweaks to it, or are you kind of quite happy with the way it is? Does it need any changes?
I mean, for the most part, yeah, I'm happy with it. I mean, they're working with this, ultimately it's a street circuit. So there's a really limited amount that they can play with, there's a limited amount that they can do. And they've already invested it, like, what was it, like 200, I could name it was like $200 million to like
Yeah.
repave the circuit and like do all that. So there's not much they could do in terms of changes. I think, like, I don't know. I think a couple of the corners are obviously just a little tight. Like there's not much space on the track that allows for multiple cars to go next to each other, except for really the main straight and part of sector one. But like, yeah, I think honestly, it's a pretty okay circuit overall. And like from when I've played it in that formula and like the F1 games specifically, like I've always enjoyed it. It's not the hardest track, and that does make it fun. And the fact that you really get to open up the cars and really push them as hard as they can go. It's always been it's always been fun to me, and I'm glad that the racing in real life has kind of, lived up to it. It has kind of lived up to the potential. We maybe got a little bit of a boring race in 2022 and 2023, but even in both of those, like they were at least 7 out of 10 because there was still good moments. It usually provides something interesting.
Remember, we didn't have a race in 22. We only had
Oh, you're right. Sorry, not
2 years here.
2022. My bad. Yes, twenty
It's all
twenty
right.
three, 2024. My bad. My bad. You're right.
Oh, because I was kind of thinking, what 2022? What happened then?
Yeah, that was my
But
fault.
but no, I think that's the thing. The race last year, I think, was a little bit more calmer and steady. Because the first one, I mean, we had that great overtake from Leclerc into the final corner. But yeah, let's hope it delivers. We've got some interesting new liveries actually. Once again, it seems like the US races this season, they're obsessed with bringing different looking cars. And first up, we've got the Williams with a bit of a kind of black and well, I don't know really what that kind of. It's a bit of a
Neon,
multicolour
I would say.
neon. Yeah, we'll go with neon. Well done, Tudor. A bit of a different kind of look on the Williams. They seem to have got a bit of an appetite of changing their livery. Sauber have done a bit of a checkered flag livery. I think that's what that is, because it's their kind of saying
It's our
goodbye to
last
the
year.
stake kind of sponsorship. I mean, good riddance. I mean, I'm glad it's gone. That's the worst looking car on the grid in my eyes, and Luke knows that I've ranted about that many a time.
Oh my
And
gosh.
they can
Yep.
do as many
No kidding.
goodbyes as they want to that one. We've also got this funky looking RB livery. Now, you messaged me about this earlier, Luke. You weren't happy about this. I mean, describe it for me. I don't know really how to put this for audio listeners. But I mean,
That's
what kind
hard.
of livery is that?
I don't know. That's a tough way to. It's tough to describe it. Honestly, the biggest thing. It has. So for those of you who know what the V carb looks like, it just has now like basically this iridescent film over. I'd say
Mm.
about 80% of the car, but then they left a decent amount of like white still remaining. So it just kind of. There's this like really shiny flake like reflective bits, and then it's just the base level underneath. It just doesn't look put together for me. Like they should have just replaced all of the white with that kind of iridescent look that they have. That might have looked kind of clean, but honestly, it just kind of clashes with what's currently there.
It could look quite interesting at night. I mean, like, we're seeing pictures of it in just like
They
kind of studio lighting, but under the lights, could maybe look a little bit nicer. With that
keep your
livery,
fingers
but
crossed. Sure, sure.
yeah, I mean, look, don't get me wrong, it's not the end of the world if it doesn't. I mean, it can't be as bad as the Texas one. I think that's probably the worst looking livery yet. With whatever the hell that was that they were going for there. But we've also got the final team, Alpine, with a slight tweak on their livery. It's a bit more of a pink
Yeah.
car, let's say. There's not too much kind of to say on that one. But that's the livery so far. There's already plenty of different helmets that the drivers are running as well. And like I say, they all seem to go a little bit nuts with this stuff when it comes to these US GPs. But the final part of the podcast that we're going to get into now is our predictions. Now, this is all new to you, Tudor, so do not feel any pressure with these predictions here, because to be honest with you, most of the time we get them wrong. So the bar is set pretty low. So
Hey,
we'll
you
see
get
how
them
you.
wrong. I'm close.
Oh, whoa! Let me bring up the stats on that. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm sure you'll wipe the floor clean with this one. However, this could be quite a tricky race to predict. But we're going to start off with our pole position prediction for the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix. Who are you thinking for pole, Tudor?
Well, I have three drivers that I think could get
Ooh.
pole: Norris, Max, and Russell. But out of
Okay.
them, with Max's recent quality performance, I think it's gonna be between Russell and Norris. And if I had to remove another driver from those two, I think it'll be Russell that gets the pole.
Okay. So,
I mean, he came out of nowhere in many qualifying sessions and just took pole from nowhere. So I can see him doing the same thing as again. But I just want to
okay.
add that it, on Friday there's actually a possibility of rain, so they might not get as much practice in if it somehow rains. It's a small chance, but there's been floods in the area. So if it rains, they'll get a little like an hour less of practice. maybe even
Rain.
2 if it rains for the whole day.
Rain in Vegas, bring it on. I mean, Logan has said to
Sure, there
me
has been.
so many times, it'll never rain in Vegas. It never happens. It'll blah, blah, blah. And here we are. There's a chance of rain in Vegas. And I just
I,
hope it happens just for the chaos.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
the
if it
weather
rained
could.
at Bahrain in
Exactly.
preseason testing, it could rain in
Exactly.
Vegas.
If we can get it in Bahrain, like you say, Judah, we can get it in Vegas. And,
Well, hey,
if you think
I'm from
places like
Phoenix, Arizona.
Baku, go on.
I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm from a neighboring state, and I can tell you right now, it's drizzling outside. So I have no
Well,
idea
there
if
you
this
go.
weather will hold up till Saturday, but you never know. It's. I'd say it's not impossible. It's definitely not off the cards.
Honestly, forget Monaco and Baku in the wet, being sketchy tracks. Las Vegas in the wet, that will
Oh, that'd
be
be beautiful.
that'll be bonkers. It'll be absolute chaos. And going down the strip, in full wet conditions would be crazy. But I'm all for it. Bring it on for the sheer entertainment of it and the drama. But back to the predictions though. Who are you thinking for pole, Luke? What is your pick for pole position?
I'm gonna just go ahead and give my prediction. I'm gonna give a little bit of explanation behind it. I'm not gonna go for realistic here. I'm gonna go for optimistic, just because I really think it'd be cool. I really think it'd be awesome if Kimi Antonelli somehow pulls a pull out of his butt. That performance at Brazil gives me a lot of confidence. Mercedes, I expect to do well, and he came off of a hot weekend. So, is it the most realistic? Maybe not. Maybe is it most realistic? Like, I think the Mercedes can achieve it. Can Kimi necessarily do it? I don't know. It'll be his first time visiting the track, but I'm going to go ahead and cross my fingers and say that, yeah, Kimi Antonelli will get pole. Realistically, I would honestly put it to Verstappen, but I just don't want to give him another pole prediction. We've already given him plenty over this season and the last, and most podcasts that we've done. So just something a little bit different.
So Kimi Antonelli for pole position. That'll be his first ever proper pole, I'm pretty sure, because he obviously got sprint pole in Miami, but this would be the first actual pole position for him. If he were to do that, I see the thinking. However, I'm going to agree with Tudor. I'm going for George Russell for pole position as well. I think that considering how much he dominated here last season, and the Mercedes is looking like the favourite for this season, I think as long as he has a clean session, he should be the pick for pole. And, you only have to go a few races ago and look how well he did at Singapore if he's on form. And I don't think he'll be stopped in qualifying. So we're all going Mercedes then. What about our race predictions? I'll go to you first this time, Luke. Who is on your podium for the Las Vegas Grand Prix?
How do you want me to go? Third to first or first to third?
Third to first, please.
Third to first. All right. Third place. I'm going to go ahead and say that Charles Leclerc is going to take third place.
Okay. Leclerc on the podium. All right.
Yeah, I'm not the most confident in it, but who knows? I think that it could happen, and I'm still trying to be optimistic for Ferrari at the end of the day. In second place, I'm going to go. Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to take a guess that you're wearing a Ferrari hat right now, Luke.
I am indeed.
How did I know?
It worked 2 weeks ago. It worked 2 weeks ago. Didn't work, or 2 races ago. Didn't work last race. But it's okay. We'll find out. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say Charles Leclerc for third. I'm going to say that Kimi Antonelli wouldn't be able to quite hold on to the lead. So I'm going to say Kimi Antonelli will finish second. And I'm going to say that Max Verstappen will win the race.
Okay. Oh,
I think that those
interesting.
McLarens I think that Norris and Piastri, still McLarens, have a good shout, but we just know that the car is draggy. It might be cooler, and whatever tire wear advantage they had early in the season doesn't really seem like it's quite there anymore, anyways. So yeah, I definitely think that Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, all of them are going to be on a pretty even playing field. But then we put Max Verstappen in, and he's just kind of the X factor.
No Russell on the podium?
No Russell on the podium. No, not this time.
Just pure pace, or do you think an instant, or
More just being optimistic for everything else. Like I said, I just want those Ferraris to be consistently still getting podiums, and then I just want Antonelli to still do it.
Okay, okay. What about you, Tudor? How is your podium looking from third to first?
I would say Norris, because I think they'll both McLarens will probably qualify in the top five, maybe P4 and five, or maybe Oscar will get unlucky and qualify outside the top five, which I can see as a possibility. But I think Norris will qualify in the top five and manage to get to the podium, even though they're not good at Vegas. Norris has been really fast at the end of the season. Then I think Russell in second and Max wins the race. I think either Max overtakes Russell on the first lap or just Russell's pace falls off. Uh, and let's say on mid race, Max overtakes him.
Okay, okay, interesting. Kind of same thing for you, I guess, Tudor. No Antonelli on the podium this time. It's a flip reverse from Luke.
Yeah, I mean, I can see him again finishing in the top five. There is, again, I'm not saying he couldn't finish on the podium. He's qualified P2 in the sprint and race, main race at Brazil. So his qualifying pace has been really good in the past few races. But honestly, I don't think he ever raced at Vegas, so it might be something new to him.
Okay, okay. Well, it's looking kind of similar predictions between the pair there. Obviously, you've got Tudor going for Norris in third, and then Luke going for Leclerc in third. I'm going to chuck a bit of a wild card thing out here, and I'm going to put my neck on the line. I actually think at least one McLaren will fail to make Q3 in Vegas, and I don't know. I've got a sneaky feeling that this qualifying is going to be very close at this track, and McLaren are really going to struggle a little bit. But we'll see. I'll probably be talking absolutely gibberish when they clean sweep qualifying and win the race as well. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think
right.
there could be a bit of a chance of jeopardy there. In terms of my podium, I'm going with Kimi Antonelli in third place. I think the Mercedes are going to have pretty supreme pace. However, it'll be Max Verstappen in second, splitting the two marks with George Russell, making it 2 years on the trot, winning here in Vegas. So I think, yeah, it's. I think we can all agree it looks like a good weekend in store for Mercedes. But is it as simple as that, Tudor? Is it as simple as just they look like they're going to be the quickest and they're going to get that result? Because this track can cause quite a bit of chaos.
Yeah, it definitely can. Honestly, and there might be small mistakes that can lead to a crash, like we saw with Norris last year. He almost DNF'd from a small mistake and lost his, I think, front left wheel. And
Actually, can I change my
Kimi,
predictions? Sorry.
it's alright.
Can I, can I change my prediction to something a lot crazier?
No, you can't change your prediction, Luke. You've made the prediction. That's
A
like
lot crazier.
no way, no way. It's set in stone. You've said it. There's no way. It's done.
Carlos
I
Sainz
mean,
is
you
gonna
can
get
say what
third.
you were going to change anyway. Considering you interrupted Shooter, you could go
I'm
ahead
so
now
sorry.
and say what it is. But yes, go
Carlos
on.
Sainz is gonna get third.
Oh well, I mean,
Sainz will get a podium.
really?
It's
I just
possible.
gave it. I just gave it like 3 more seconds of thought. And dude, those Williams are always dominant on fast tracks. And Baku, he did the same. I'm gonna say he's gonna repeat what happened at Baku, and he's gonna get a third place. Screw
Mm,
Leclerc. Sorry, I'm
okay,
so sorry. I just
okay,
had to get it out.
that's fine. I mean, so that kind of answers my question that I was going to give to you, Luke, of which kind of midfield team is going to surprise in Vegas. And I guess, yeah,
Ooh.
your answer there would be Williams. I mean,
V
I guess a
Carbon
high speed
Williams for
circuit.
sure. Mhm. Yeah, V
Yeah.
Carbon Williams. I honestly have a good feeling for. They do surprisingly well at random weekends, and honestly, this could easily be one of them because V Carb is a pretty consistently good car, and then they're pretty consistently good at high speed tracks. Like, yeah, absolutely, V Carbon Williams would have my vote. They should do at least decently right now. Maybe they won't be the top of the field, but I totally can see a top five from both of those teams from any of their respective drivers. They're all fairly even with each other, are all fairly good.
Well, we shall find out. Obviously, like I say, this weekend is the Las Vegas Grand Prix. It's going to be very funny viewing times if you're watching from the UK, because I think the race is on at something like 4 in the morning or something bonkers, which is not fun at all. But it's only for one time. Is it like midnight for you, Luke, in Phoenix?
No, we're on the same time zone as Vegas, so I'm chilling.
Right. So, what is the actual local time of the race? Is that like kind of 10ish?
Let me double check. I think around
Not to
then,
be on the
yeah.
spot.
No. Yeah, it's a good question.
How about you, Tudor? What kind of time is the race for you? Because I think it's a bit of a strange time for everybody, this one.
I'm not sure at what time will it be in the UK?
So in the UK, it's like 4 in the morning that it starts in terms of the race.
Well,
You guys are 7 hours ahead, and it starts at 9 p.m. my time.
Well, that's a nice time.
So 5 in the morning. 5 in the morning for you.
Well, yeah, and then I'm 2 hours ahead of the UK, so that'll be 7 in the morning for me.
That's not too bad. Just a slightly
Yeah.
early start to the day. Get your breakfast in. I'm not sure I'll be doing that at 5 in the morning. That is for sure. But it'll be coffee on the go. That is for sure, to keep me awake for that. But let's hope it's going to be an exciting race, which means that us watching in the UK won't need any of that to keep us engaged, because it has a lot of ramifications, this race. It's a lot on the line. You can be absolutely sure if any one of that top 3 in the standings crashes out or has a bad result, it will seriously decide the championship in which way it's going to go for the final 2 rounds after Vegas. But that has been this week's podcast. Thank you, Tudor. Thank you, Luke, for joining me on this week's episode. Thank you. And if you have enjoyed this episode and you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel for more content. And if you're listening on your audio platform of choice, you can follow us on there. We'll be back next week to review the Las Vegas Grand Prix and then look ahead to Qatar, the penultimate round of the season. Will Lando Norris once again cement his top spot in the standings, or can Piastri and Verstappen fight back in this race for the title? We'll see you in the next one.